So those of you who are new to the prayer, just fake it. Organ yugi nu jam sam pemarge sadam pola yang sen juki nu jubne pema junye shu sujwa kordu kanjo ma okur keki jesu da juhi jingi labji jesu so guru pema siri Organ yugi ujam sam pemarge sada ola yang sen juki nyu jubne pema junye she sujwa kodu kanjo ma ukur keki jesu dang jugi jengi labji she su so guru pema siri in English. Hung at Oregon's northwest frontier, on a stem and corona of a lotus flower, wondrous supreme accomplishment attained as the lotus-born renown, surrounded by Sukla many dakinis, so I am made to become like you. Please come and grant your blessing. Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Ahum Benza 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 Guru Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Benza Guru Siddhi Om Ahum Benza Guru Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Benza Guru Siddhi Om Ahum Guru Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Benza Guru Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Guru Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Zaguru Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Zaguru Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Zaguru Siddhi Om Ahum Padma Siddhi Om Ahum Guru Padma Siddhi Guru Pema Siddhi Om. So just start out by just sitting and being. Simply sitting is just being automatically. Just sitting very relaxed, without any thought of sitting, but just simply sitting. Is automatically just being. So we just sit or just be, as long as it allows us to just sit and just be. So if you can't just sit, simply sit or just be, that's when we have to call on a little bit of effort. That's where the practice starts. So we can apply what we did last night. Just simply not focusing. Just simply see, feel, experience everything without focusing on whatever is perceived, felt, or experienced. Or you can just simply be aware and don't allow the awareness to become anything. Which is same as not allowing the awareness to focus on anything. just perceiving, feeling, experiencing without focusing on what is perceived, felt, or experienced. So take a break. So we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday evening. A couple of words, especially for those of you who were not here last night. So what we're going to focus on non-focusingly is non-focusing. And as we do this practice, or as we start to do this practice, it's not going to seem right. Because this is not the way we're used to seeing. When we see, most of us when we see focusingly. We don't just see it. All of a sudden, you try to see without focusing, of course it's going to seem foreign or weird or different. So that's normal. And we don't make the transition immediately. It takes a while for you to really become used to that. But after you make the transition, you'll be able to see that everything will appear much clearer, freer, and wider, expansive, which you don't have when you focus. Because when you focus, automatically all the other things besides what is not focused is excluded from your field of awareness or consciousness. So first, and I want to continue, I want you to become clear what is meant by non-focusing. Intellectually, conceptually, and experientially, and non-conceptually. And we started doing this, and we're going to start out again. Especially for those who were not here last night. Just simply see or experience the difference when you focus on something and that same thing that you were focusing on, you look at the same thing and not focus. I want you to see what is the difference. So we're going to do this again. Of course, those of you who've already mastered it, you don't have to do it, but if you haven't, please do it. We can only gain the clarity, the confidence, the sureness by just doing it over and over. And that's the only way we're going to utilize its potential and its power. So first just see as you normally see, which is probably focusingly seeing something. Then, when you're familiar, clear, then switch. See the same thing without focusing. So some of you may experience this because the awareness is so tied in, or coupled with focusing. When the awareness starts not to focus, it may seem like you're not aware. But rest assured, you are aware. And also notice that in the beginning, it does take effort and definitely awareness for the awareness not to focus. So what does that feel like? For the new people, what does that feel like? What is the difference? And for the people who were here last night, is it exactly the same as it was last night? Or what other things do you see or experience?
Everyone, please hold the microphone close to your mouth and speak slowly and clearly.
What?
It wasn't the same as last night.
Good.
When I started focusing, then things narrowed, and I started to search for detail and exactness.
Yeah.
And then when I unfocused, when I was focused, anything that was external to what I was focusing on was an irritant. And when I unfocused, then I saw the same thing, but I was more aware of what was around me, and I had enough space to let a distraction come in and go away.
Yeah. Good. Good for you. So keep on doing it. It'll keep on opening up. It'll get clearer, you know. So that's good, what you're experiencing.
Thank you. I'm kind of creating a visual metaphor because I'm a visual person, and I was looking at that plant, and if I were going to draw that plant, I would be extremely attentive to every detail, and so I was observing color, shape, shadow, vase that it's standing in, and everything else just fades. I mean, I didn't think of anything but that. And
Right.
when I let it go out
Right.
of focus, then, you know, I was aware of it being there,
Right?
but I was aware of a lot else, you know,
Right,
a
of
much
course.
broader spectrum.
Right.
And so for me, the visual metaphor would be that when you blur your eyes, sort of,
Yeah.
you're looking at something sharply and then you bring it out of focus. It's sort of like that, but consciously, in the consciousness. So it was a different experience from last night for me.
So, so how do you feel the change? One from the other.
I think
Is it positive or to not focus, or is it better to focus?
it depends what your purpose is.
Exactly.
So the not focusing expands my general awareness.
Yeah. But you lose the clarity that you have when you focus, right?
Correct.
Right. See, that's the thing. In the beginning, that's the way it is. But as you do the practice, you won't lose the clarity, the sharpness, because we're not used to that. When we focus, we have the clarity, the sharpness, but we're limited. We're limited. You see that? That's what I want you to know.
Thank you.
So you'll never be able to go beyond that. Whereas if you don't focus, things eventually it'll become clearer.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Even though when you actually experience it, it has nothing to do with making sense. But I'm glad it makes sense now.
I want to ask a question about focusing as it relates, non-focusing as it relates to the equanimity of what's there. So, in other words, when we're talking visually about focusing, if I focus on the plant and then I go to non-focusing, depending on the size and how far away things are, there's a clarity or a lack of clarity, right? So everything's not equal in that non-focusing space. There's not an equality in all of those objects.
Right.
What's brighter or larger or closer.
Right.
So when we talk about focusing and non-focusing as it relates to emotions or thoughts, the thought of the emotion can dissolve, but the experience physically of the emotion is still within the context of the space. So there's not also an equanimity internally in the non-focusing. And I just wondered if you could speak to that kind of lack of equanimity.
It's just simply from not being used to, not having perfected, not having become familiar, not having established in the practice. There's no way you would still be constricted emotionally if you weren't focusing. So what you feel, outwardly is, non-constricted. It's like, I don't know how to say it. It's kind of superficial at this stage. But when you non-focus, you begin to really interiorize that. It just goes through your whole body, through your whole feeling, which is emotion is very part of. First of all, you can't separate the emotion from the object. Just as you can't separate the object from the awareness. Perceiver from the perceived. Remember, Deborah, you're just starting. Okay? Do the practice and it will automatically, your emotion will automatically be non-constricted. Maybe that doesn't answer your question right now. So there.
I just want to speak to this emotional constriction that
Yeah.
you're speaking to right now, because I'm very present to a certain level of emotional struggle
Yeah,
as I try to unfocus.
not focus.
Yeah, to not focus. So for me, the experience right now was very challenging in the sense that after like a heavy week of a lot of work, where I hear constantly the message that I need to focus, right? Focus.
Yeah,
focus.
of course, that's what they tell you in your
Exactly.
job. You need to focus.
You gotta focus, right? And then, but I also realize now trying to not focus that
Yeah,
with focusing on my day-to-day life, there is emotional constriction
yeah, of
together.
course.
It doesn't matter what I'm doing. And now you're just guiding us in the practice and trying to release the focus. There is emotional, like an emotional battle. There's some level of
Yeah,
emotional
course,
resistance.
Of course.
But at the same time, as I can relax a little bit the focus, the emotion can also relax.
Yes.
And then I get, oh, okay, this is really good. But again, it's the challenge of
Yeah, that's a very good observation. Because it's subtle. You notice the difference. There's two different forces working. You have this kind of like a super ego. You say, you cannot not focus. Come on. Your job depends on it. And then there's the other side, that begins to experience, wow, when you don't focus, there's some things that are free that, it's cool. So you just have to work that out through your own practice. So that's good. Main thing is I want you to start to experience what it is not to focus. See the potential and the power in that. Of course you have to focus, at this stage, right now. I don't want you to get fired or get into a wreck when you're driving on the freeway or whatever, Yeah, we make the transition. And we do what we have to do. But eventually you will be able to do all of that non-focusingly. But you won't be able to do it immediately. Look at all the free time you have during the day that you can not focus. Develop the non-focusing. You don't have to sit properly in a meditation seat to not focus, right? Hell. You cannot focus walking, talking to somebody, eating, whatever you're doing. You cannot, you can do the practice of non-focusing. This is like a physical way of demonstrating the difference between focusing and non-focusing, Like if I'm eating, Whereas I'm just eating. Like this, versus I'm eating like this. You see the difference? See, when you're doing this, you become a slave to the focusing. When you're eating like this, you're eating everything, tasting, seeing, but you're not blocked out to all the other things.
The transition for me from focusing to unfocusing this morning, everything kind of turned into energy. So my body melted a bit into the surroundings, and the object that I had focused on just became energy. And for a while there was like a little amoeba running around that energy trying to find something to focus on. And it was just swimming around.
Yeah.
And then some energy just, it was very peaceful, and it was like, I don't want to come back from this. And energy was flowing through, and then my body really wanted to move. And that's happened before, and I don't know what to do with that, whatever it is, whether to go ahead and move my body and let it do what it wants to do, or to just...
You don't have to inhibit, stop anything. Only thing you do is not focus.
Yeah, okay.
You can do everything, We can do everything that we're used to doing, we're doing, and not focus. Not focusing doesn't prevent us.
It also, all of a sudden, just touched my heart.
Yeah. So when you said the amoeba was swimming around looking for something, I was thinking of the sperm. Well, that just shows you where my mind is, what I'm focused on. So that's good. You're getting it. You're experiencing it.
Brendan, last time when you were here, we did a meditation. It was Dujun Rinpoche's teachings on meditation.
Right.
And part of the practice was to recognize each individual thought and then release it into its own liberation.
Right. The instruction is recognize the rising as soon as it rises, or as it rises, and just leave it at that with recognition.
And that to me was very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Because you have to recognize each individual thought
Right,
as it
yeah,
comes up.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if this non-focusing is maybe a more general way of doing the
It's
same
a different
thing?
way of doing it. You know, maybe it's a stupid way of doing it for stupid people like me. You know.
Yeah, well, that's what I need is I need the stupid, simple way of doing it, you know?
Yeah. But it does the same thing.
Okay.
It prevents you from getting lost in whatever rises. What's the difference? Dujun Rinpoche's meditation prevents from us getting lost in the rising. Whereas this prevents us from getting lost in whatever we see, feel, or experience by not focusing, right? Same thing. You know, one seems so much more simpler and so much more plain. You know, it's easy to say, well, I can't be right. It's just too simple or too, whatever. But it's the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you noticed the difference and the similarity.
Brendan, I'm still thinking about the question I asked yesterday about the difference between focus, distraction, and non-focus. And maybe I have a different way to
What do you mean,
ask it.
focus, distraction, and non-focus distraction?
No, I mean the three words: when you're focused, when you're distracted,
Yeah.
and then what we're working with here, non-focus. But maybe, I think I figured out a different way to ask the question today.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about what is the difference between unfocused, like being unfocused, and non-focus. And of course, these are words trying to describe experience. So maybe that's the problem in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Non-focused, unfocused. Well, unfocused is like the result of non-focused. So I don't see that much difference between when you're not focused, unfocused. Yeah, the word can be confusing. But just simply remember, not focused. I don't think we don't need the, distinguish between unfocused or not focused. Unfocused could have a connotation of not focused, what doesn't need to be not focused. But we can go on and with this. So what is that your question, the difference between those two? Well, ask me the question the way you did last night. Maybe I'm a little smarter today.
Now I'm thinking I should tell you more about my experience of it rather
Yes,
than
of course,
asking the question
of course.
again. But
That's what I'm interested in.
maybe I need a little time to think about the difference between last night's experience and today's experience. So maybe give me a minute to
Yeah, of
think, and
course.
then I'll ask again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure.
So, Brendan, when I was focusing on this object, I noticed when I was focusing, I had an opinion about it. I had a judgment. And the biggest judgment was that it was separate from me.
Right,
And it was separate from all the things around it.
right.
There was a lot of thinking going on. I was non-focused. I could let that go. And it just was, and I just was. And yeah, that's all I got out of it.
But that's what non-focusing does automatically. It dissolves the separateness. Because you focus creates the separation, the division. So you're beginning to experience that. That's one of the fruits of the practice of non-focusing. So I have a way of saying, focusing is a way we alienate ourselves from who we really are, from our true nature. So if we don't focus, there's nothing to separate us from who we really are. But you're going to ask the question, well, hell, I'm not focusing and I'm not experiencing my true nature. So what's the deal? The deal is you have all these habitual, subtle karmic predispositions that you don't consciously experience, but they affect you subconsciously and unconsciously at that level. That's why. But by doing the non-focusing, we gradually penetrate, okay? Just by doing. As I said before, the mind practice. Mind, just being mind, automatically purifies itself. Same here. Awareness, not being aware of anything. When the awareness is not focusing, it's not aware of anything, it starts to purify itself without you knowing it or ever making an effort, separate effort to purify. So like the mind or awareness, if it's not anything, it automatically starts to be itself. There's nothing that prevents it from being itself, other than your karmic predispositions, habits, and conditioning. Those are the things that we have to work on. And we work on those through non-focusing. Focusing is a habit, many levels. We focus consciously, we focus subconsciously, we focus unconsciously.
This is a little bit of an intellectual question because I don't feel I can get there, but
But that's how we start out, that's good.
So you talked last night and just now about the subconscious and unconscious levels. So I noticed, because I don't sleep well, that you can just wake up and have these stupid thoughts are just going through your head, taking up a lot of energy. So say you started in your 20s with this practice and you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, would that then go down into those levels so that your sleep would actually become like a meditation? You wouldn't
Yes.
be...
It would.
Okay,
Otherwise, what's the purpose of doing it?
right.
Yeah. I told you there's many different levels of non-focusing, you know. And we penetrate the different levels, different depths, by just simply doing that. You can't, you know, there's not every separate thing to do at each stage. It's not like that. Just by doing it, it refines itself.
So when you wake up in the middle of the night, just do unfocusing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. My experience of the non-focusing was similar to what other people have talked about. When I focused, I could really see the detail and things got broader in the non-focusing, and it was almost as if my peripheral vision got bigger in what, you know, in my presence. But parts of it also seem to have a richer quality. And I wonder if that's a
When you don't focus or when you focus?
When I don't focus.
Exactly.
And I wonder if that's the energy that Eileen mentioned. Is that the energetic quality, that richness?
So, you know, everything, the energy, everything becomes constricted when we focus. You know? We have this notion, preconceived notion that, you know, I mean, when we focus, it's clear, I can see better. But that's in a smaller, in such a narrow term. You do in that limited world, the small world. You do. But in the larger world, larger kind, you're not. You really isolated yourself, limited yourself.
So in that non-focus point, there is more, we're more aware of all of the energy.
What there is. Because awareness is not constricted, it's not stuck on this small thing. When you don't focus, what is the awareness stuck on? Okay? Remember? The awareness, the true nature is empty awareness, okay? Totally empty, totally expansive, no barriers. So in a way, you're automatically beginning to experience your true nature when you don't focus.
Thank you.
But these are the things we should start to notice. You know, these are the things, these are the potentials. We notice what what the possibilities are. Before she forgets, come on, go.
Brendan, there's a question from the live stream from Chris.
Yeah.
He says, while focusing objects had a heavy quality of distinctness and separateness,
Yes.
while non-focusing, that separation between the experienced and the experiencer diminished.
Exactly.
It felt good and joyful.
Good for you.
And his question is, do you think that focusing is simply another way of being distracted from being aware and truly present?
Yes, it is another way, but it's the main way for most of us. one of the main ways. And by that I mean, as I said before, for most of us, when we perceive, feel, and experience, we're automatically focusing. That's where we were born. Those are the traits of the karmic predisposition. We're born with the habitual tendencies. Unless someone tells us or shows us, we keep on doing the same thing. So, tell him he's really, I'm telling him, you're experiencing the qualities of non-focusing, the fruits of non-focusing. You're starting to experience the potential of non-focusing. So just keep at it. There's no end, okay? There's no end to non-focusing. Non-focusing automatically dissolves any lines of demarcation. That's why there's no end.
Brendan. Oh, to your left. To your left.
Yeah.
Hi. So I just likewise would like to share my experience of my understanding of focus versus non-focus. So I was focusing on the object, and everything was clear about it. The color, the texture.
Mm-hmm.
It was clear.
Yeah.
And then as I dropped into non-focus, it just became less important. Became kind of blurry with the rest of what was in my visual range. And likewise, I think I got a glimpse into what the previous questioner described about that barrier between the experience and the experiencer. It didn't I wouldn't say it completely went away, but it diminished.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, so that's a good point. I want to point out something from what you said. And what you said points to where is the problem when we don't focus on the problem? Of course, don't mistake me. If you have a broken car and you say, where's the problem? And you don't focus on the problem, the car's not going to fix itself. But what you're going to fix is your anxiety. You being lost in the broken car. So a lot of us, we react, we get anxious, right? When we're so dependent on the car and the car is broken, all of a sudden it doesn't do what we want it to do. Because we're focused.
And that is what I experienced a lot, and what brought me to the practice was just getting the way I understand focus, getting carried away by my thoughts, rumination,
Exactly.
which then leads to unnecessary anxiety and just suffering. Just what the Buddha taught the how to end suffering. So
Yeah. So whatever little problem you have, if you focus it just fans the problem. It intensifies the problem. So this is the practical benefit of this practice. It's not just a, meditative exercise. So let's have a quick pee break and then So have you ever analyzed why we keep on making the same mistakes over and over throughout our whole life? Have you? Why do you think so? Why do you think we keep on making the same mistakes over and over? Anybody? Huh?
Habit?
Yes, that's one of them. Anybody else?
Lack of awareness.
Yes. Good. Keep on going.
It's actually something that, a question that haunts me. Why do, I can only speak for myself, but why do I keep behaving in such a way that it's not very productive or helpful, or however you want to frame it? I think some of those things that were said, habits, lack of awareness, some of it might have to do with some subconscious patterns or that we're not aware of.
Right. Those are all true. But I just want to hear from different people what their take is. I just want to get a different perspective.
Karma.
Yes, that's true too. We need a drone for that microphone.
There's 3 back here, Brendan. Tara says, to maintain a sense of security and what
Yes.
is familiar. And Chris says, not knowing any other way. And Tracy says,
What was the last one?
not knowing any other way.
Yeah, then?
And it's actually the only thing that convinces me that karma exists.
Right. Okay, those are all true.
Self-cherishing.
Very good.
It requires effort to do something differently. So,
Okay.
not wanting to put forth the effort.
Yeah, laziness. Okay, all right, go ahead. Give me the last one.
Choosing what appears to be comfort over being uncomfortable.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so a lot of these can be framed into attachment, clinging, attachment. You remember Naropa's famous statement? It's not the appearance that's the problem. It's our attachment to the appearance that creates the problem. The appearance, whatever happens, is not the problem. It's our attachment that creates all the problems. Attachment means grasping. So you can know this with certainty that what prevents you from being really free or who you are is simply being attached. When you're attached to things, that's not what you are. What you really are is free from all of that. Not attached, but still sees clearly, experiences everything clearly. So the clinging is the problem. What is self-cherishing, which is actually the real demon in most of us. In fact, I came to the conclusion at a certain point, there's no other demon than the self-cherishing. That's the main demon that creates all these horrible-looking protectors to protect you from self-cherishing. So, how do we attach? How do we cling? How do we grasp? We all know we grasp, we cling, we're attached, right? But how does that happen? Focusing. If you don't focus, you can't cling. See if you can be attached or cling to something when you're not focusing. If you can do it, please educate me. And this focusing comes from let's say the self, this sense of self that all of us that we have, most of us that we have. This sense of self is like the source of all our mistakes. Because it's self that we feel, which is so real, which is self-existing, doesn't really exist. And of course, originally the sense of self comes from the subtle karmic predisposition that we carry from one life to the next life, which it is said this source is like beginningless. But we do have it, we experience it. It affects us. So this sense of self, or the I, in a way, has a natural tendency wanting to reinforce itself, to maintain its existence. That only way it can maintain its existence is to have an object. And it does that through focusing. When you focus, object is automatically created. The separateness of mind from the object is created when we focus. Where is the object when you don't focus? Huh? So we're going to actually experience that. It's not good enough just to understand. So I want you to continue the practice of non-focusing. Pick an object. Just simply see that object. Or just simply be aware of that object. And see if you can find the dividing line between the object and the awareness. So if you don't focus, what differentiates the object from the awareness? Because our habit is so strong, even when you don't focus, when you're looking at that object will automatically still appear as separate and solid. But as you do the practice, you will begin to see that there's no difference between the awareness and the object of awareness when you don't focus. That's how we can begin to erase the separation. This is the major delusion, major misperception. Seeing the object and the awareness is different or separate. Seeing the manifestation completely different than the source. So were you able to see that at all? When we didn't focus on the object, begin to see that where is the difference? Where is the dividing line between the awareness and the object? So just continue to see if you can see that. So when you're doing this practice, it's okay if you don't see the object and you don't see the awareness. Because you're still aware. Even though you don't see the awareness, you're not distracted to anything, but you're still aware. So of course you're not going to be able to see it black and white as you usually see in the beginning. But I want you to get an inkling or a sense of that. Begin to see that, how that is very possible. So that's what happens when we totally realize emptiness. There's no difference between the source and the manifestation, object and the subject, between awareness and the object of awareness. Not having realized the empty nature of mind creates the division or the separateness. So, I want to hear about your experience when you did this. Try to see the non-difference between the object and the awareness. Anybody? I'm just interested in what you experience, okay? I'm not looking for right or wrong.
Maybe something to do with labeling or naming that object, bestowing some kind of meaning on that object.
So that's good. Hold on a minute there before, I'll get to you, but I want, before I forget, that's a very good point. So, in the Gelugpa tradition, in the Madhyamika, whatever reality that we perceive to be real, all the things that we perceive, feel, and experience are mere designation. Designated by the mind, conceptual mind. That's how we can relate to it. It makes sense to us. So whatever we describe, however we receive things to be, that's not the way it really is. And that's an important thing to remember. All the things that we see, feel, are just a mere designation. They're not inherently, separately real. So through non-focusing, we can begin to see that. So this kind of takes the rug out underneath from reality, right? Pulls the rug, how do you say? Pulls the rug out underneath you? Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. It was very helpful to hear you frame it up in terms of finding the dividing line. Because I have a hard time getting my head around this, everything's, that lack of discernment between the seer and the seen.
Right.
But then, I just have an easier time getting the concept if I just say, well, all right then, where is it?
Exactly. When you don't focus, where is it?
So that was very helpful, thank you.
When you don't designate it, when you don't define it, where is it? Yeah. And one Hindu saint by the name of Nisargadatta says, the seeker is the sought. Sought is the seeker. Huh?
Can you say it again, please? Can you say it again?
Sought is the seeker. Seeker is the sought. Because, we're all looking for enlightenment, okay? We're seeking enlightenment. We're seeking awakening. We're seeking the awakening. But the seeker is the sought. So we don't know the seeker. That's why we seek. Totally disregard the seeker. Seeking, just seeking, Mr. Magoo. So that's good. Anybody else?
So, Brendan, I struggle a little bit more with this practice. I struggle.
Yeah,
So if I'm focusing on my thoughts,
yeah,
then it's easier for me to not see the dividing line between the awareness and the thought. But when I'm focusing on this table,
Yeah.
so an object, then it's harder for me because I'm not the table. And if I wasn't here in this room to be seeing the table, it's like that saying, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, did it really happen? I guess I have trouble going that distance to say, well, if I wasn't here, would that table still be here and somebody else would see the table? So, seeing that the perceiver is no different than the perceived.
right.
I guess with objects, I'm getting hung up.
Okay. The problem is you're still holding the table is separate and real. And we kind of get the notion that table doesn't exist. No, it doesn't say the table does not exist. But it also says it does not exist. That's what solves the problem. It's called non-affirming negation. It's a very important concept or practice in the Madhyamaka school. And it was like evolved and formed, through many different great logicians. So, I wasn't very clear when you said about the thoughts. So go over that again, please.
It's easier for me when I'm to see no difference between, the awareness
And the thought.
and the thought.
Okay.
It's harder for me when it comes to a physical object.
Okay. Yeah, that's understandable. So what are we doing when we see that there's no difference between a thought and the awareness? Or what are you doing when you see that there's no difference?
I guess it's the perception that the thought is generated more internally, I guess. More part of me. I suppose there's still that fixation then on the I.
So if you don't see the thoughts any different than the awareness, then can you see the emptiness of the thoughts? Do the thoughts appear as empty?
Yeah, because in my
Not empty of the thoughts, but it's empty of any existence, self-existence, any permanence.
Yeah, thoughts come and go. It's less tangible. So it's easier for me to see that impermanence and that emptiness of a thought than it is to see that in an object. Although objects come and go as well, but it's harder for me to see the lack of separation between self and a table, for example.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, there is a separation because you're focusing on this. If you don't focus, there can't be any separation. You can't get over this idea or the preconception that's edged in your mind, that table is really solid and real. That's your preconception, your idea, your conditioning that you can't shake off. And as I told you, you're not going to immediately see the non-existence, the absence, or the emptiness at the table, the non-differentiation between the awareness and the objective awareness. As you do the practice, you will begin to see it. Because what happens if you see exactly the object is no different than the awareness, then the object is none other than the awareness. Awareness is empty awareness. That means you would have had to realize the nature of mind. You would have had to realize the emptiness. So I would have a big problem after you realize emptiness and you can't see that table as not being separate from awareness. Do you understand what I'm saying? Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
I just need to sit with it.
Exactly. You just need to work with it. You need more work. You know? That's why I said, because that's exactly the reason I said in the beginning, you're not going to see very clearly. And I also said, just get the sense, understand the possibility of that. Begin to really experience it by doing the practice. You'll be able to begin to see that. It's not different. That object is not different. That object is none other than the empty awareness, the empty radiance of the mind when you don't focus. What else could it be? When you don't separate the awareness from the object. Yeah, what else can it be? But we have etched in our mind that separateness, the solidity. It is so pervasive, so deep down. It not only affects us consciously, but unconsciously.
So, Brendan, then if Genevieve is not here to be aware of the table, but somebody else walks into the room, are they not going to see a table here?
That's all conceptual.
I mean, there's something there, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm just telling you. I told you that's what is meant by non-affirming negation. It's not nothing, and it's not nothing. It's something, but it's something not in the way that we think of something. We're used to something. It's something, but we can't say anything about it. I went over that last year when I talked about the section that I talked on emptiness. And, I was talking about non-affirming negation. So, Jeff, do you understand what I'm saying? When I look at it, it doesn't say it exists, and it doesn't say it does not exist, totally not exist. You understand that? It says, lack of a better word, something exists. There's no question. Because we see it. But we don't have to see it separately, as a separate entity. We don't have to see it as solid. That's all made up by the mind. This is an important point. We need to keep on clarifying. And this solves many of the problems, the confusions. And I'll do it in another way. Okay, just simply sit for a moment right now. We're going to do this exercise. Okay, we're sitting. We're aware, right? All of us are aware. Now, do we have to be aware of something to be aware? Do you have to know that you're aware to be aware? Can you see that you don't have to know that you're aware to be aware? Can you see that? Also see that you don't have to be aware of anything to be aware. So you see that as an indisputable fact. Can you see that? Can you dispute that? What I'm saying here? There's no doubt, right? You're aware. Before you're aware of anything. Now, the problem comes. Tell me what that awareness is. Can you tell me exactly what that awareness is? No, it's a different story. At one point, we're so sure and clear, there's no doubt we're aware, right? But once we start to, what is it? I want to be really clear. And all of a sudden, what happened? It's not so clear. What is it exactly? What is it? Because it's not anything. That's why. Absolutely not anything, but still aware. See that? That's what empty awareness means. So just take what we did today, this last part, just work with that. So what I've actually done is actually introduce you to your own nature, your own awareness. Without you even expecting or knowing about it. That's the awareness that we're trying to realize. We're trying to access. It's here, right now. We are that. So we'll take a couple more questions before we end. Anybody with a burning question or burning insight, shattering insight they want to share?
Yeah, just question, kind of follow up on Genevieve's question. You know, when we are using thoughts as the object.
As what?
As the object. So when we're using thoughts as the object in the meditation, thoughts, when we don't focus, thoughts dissolve. So it's easier to see that thoughts are mine, thoughts are the awareness.
Right.
But it gets much more difficult. Genevieve used the table.
Yeah, exactly.
But let me use something like physical pain.
Yeah.
Okay, so we might not focus, but it doesn't dissolve. It's still there.
Right.
And it's still, the suffering may be diminished, but there is still some suffering there. So I guess it's a practice question of how do we work with those kinds of more solid things?
The pain is not going to totally go away. Neither is the table going to totally disappear. Okay? That's what is meant by when it's something, but it's not anything. It doesn't dissolve.
Right, so
what is the question?
So the question is not conceptually, the question is in a practice, how do we work with that more solid thing as the object that doesn't dissolve?
It's not an object. When you don't focus, where's the object? Object is your preconception. That's etched, that sense of realness, separateness, that's etched in your mind. That's what's still present, that you can't get rid of right away. You will as you do the practice. That table will appear as empty, but the table's not going to disappear.
So just letting it be as it is right now is what you're pointing to.
Right. So when you just let it be, what do? We stop focusing automatically. We stop reifying when we just let it be. Or when we just stop focusing. We don't reify. We don't continue to reify the table when we don't focus. So you ask me to practice, that's how you practice. Not focus. You can directly not focus, or you can just let the table be as it is. Then the solidity and the separateness is going to automatically disappear. Or you can realize the empty nature of the table. Emptiness of the table. Table's not going to disappear, but what's going to disappear? It being separate from you, or it being solid. All the qualities that you think would make the table. The table. That's going to disappear. So hold on, we've got to get this clear. You understand how to practice now? Okay. All right.
Well, this is part of that same question, Brendan. Is there a difference between the table and the thought of the table?
To the conceptual mind, there is. To the pure mind, there isn't. For the pure mind, that question would not come up. Okay?
Well, I'll take your word on that.
Well, if you're in the natural state, it's beyond any words. So you either have to take it or not take it.
The only thing I can know about the table is my perception of the table.
Yeah.
Perception all happens on this side.
Yeah.
My perception.
That's a
doesn't
good
te-
start. That's a good start.
My perception
Now
doesn't
clear. It all happens on your side. Now clarify your side, then you'll be okay.
The perception of the table isn't the table itself. The table isn't bothering me.
Table is what?
Isn't bothering me. That what we make real are our emotions and our opinions of other people and all those things. And we start with a table.
Well, it has a lot to do with the perceiver.
Yeah,
Or the
it's
awareness.
all to do with the perceiver.
Well, the table is there, okay? You can't, you see that Genevieve, tell that to Genevieve. God damn it, the table is still there. How do I get rid of this fucking table?
She can ask Jim to move it for her.
We'll remove all the table after this session. All right, we'll end here. In the world in general, in this nation, may not even the name of disease, famine, war, suffering be heard. May virtues, quality, merit, prosperity greatly increase. May continuous good fortune, sublime well-being perfectly arise. By this merit, may all beings gain omniscience, thus defeat the neurosis of negative action to our enemies, and that turbulent waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may all beings be liberated. May the table be liberated.